Welcome to Understand the Math. In this question, we're going to express vector x as a linear combination of vectors v1, v2, and v3. There are two ways that we can do this, and I'm going to talk about both of those ways. The first way is the way that you usually learn at the beginning of a linear algebra course. You can take a vector x, and you can write it as a linear combination of other vectors. So that's c1, v1, plus c2, v2, plus c3, v3. And then to find c1, c2, and c3, what you do is you take your vectors v1, v2, and v3, and you put them in a matrix and you augment it with vector x, and then you put it in reduced echelon form to find c1, c2, and c3. This is a little lengthy process. So there's another way that we can do this, but this will only work if our vectors are orthogonal to each other. So let's check real quick if these vectors v1, v2, and v3 are orthogonal. If we take the dot product of v1 dotted with v2, we're going to get a 12 minus 12 plus 0, which is 0. If we take the dot product of v1 with v3, I'm not going to write this down, but we're going to get a 4, a minus 4 plus a 0, so that's 0. And then lastly, v2 dotted with v3 is going to give us a 3 plus 3 minus 6, which is also 0. So in this problem, our vectors v are orthogonal to each other, so there's actually an easier way that we can express x as a linear combination of these vectors. And that way is going to use dot products. The formula that we're going to use is c1 is going to be x dotted with v1, all divided by v1 dotted with v1. Let's go ahead and compute what this is. X dotted with v1, we're going to pick up a 20 plus 8 plus 0 on the top. And then v1 dotted with itself, we're just going to square each component in v1. And this is going to be a 16 plus 16 plus 0. So we end up with a 28 divided by 32. And it looks like 4 goes into both of those. So we can write this as a 7 divided by 8. Now let's do C2. So C2, using the same type formula, it's going to be x dotted with v2 divided by v2 dot v2. Let's now see what this equals. X dotted with v2, we're going to pick up a 15, a minus 6, and a minus 1 on the top. And v2 dotted with itself gives us a 9 plus 9 plus 1. So 15 minus 7 is going to give us an 8. And then in our denominator, we have an 18 plus 1 is a 19. And we can't reduce that at all. Now let's go ahead and let's do C3. C3 is x dotted with v3, all divided by v3 dotted with v3. We'll pull this back down so we can see this. X dotted with v3. So we have a 5, a minus 2, and a 6. So 5 minus 2 plus 6. And then we'll have to pull this back down. v3 dotted with itself is going to give us a 1 plus a 1 plus a 36. So up top, we're going to have a 9. And in our denominator, we're going to have a 38. And we can't reduce that one either. Now we can write our final answer. We can say that our vector x is going to be c1, which is 7 over 8 times v1, plus 8 over 9 times v2, plus 9 over 38 times v3.
If this video has been helpful to you, please consider subscribing to my channel. Keep believing in yourself and have a great rest of your day.